Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Dude didn't help me with the job when I was desperate for a job. I did the same. The second story. Old landscaping owner rips my friend off $400, so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. The third story. My grandma was kind of a hero in the workplace. And the first story is, take months to reply to me. Well, now enjoy the silent treatment. I'm a graduate international student. The thing you need to know about international students is, we need to network and find a job which sponsors for working visa within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, we get deported to our home country, which can be tough. So I find this job in 2019 looking for an internship that I would be perfect for. I have the exact background they're looking for. CS, engineering, management, it's a product I like, and I even find an alumnus who works in the company. Reached out to this alumnus and no response. No biggie, maybe he's busy. I wait. In the meantime, he responds to another classmate, female, and is jumping through hoops setting up conversations for her. So it's just me he's ignoring. I finally get an interview with the company. Reach out to this guy again to see what things this company looks for. After getting many staff members from the school involved, he gets on a 15-minute conversation with me. He's very much not helpful again, and I predictably bomb that interview. Now fast forward 3 years and I'm working at a big multinational. This alumnus drops me a message saying he's looking for some help getting into this new role at the company I work for. Guess who's getting ghosted now? Do I feel bad about it? No, turnabout is fair play. He ghosted me when I was desperate for a job. After the position is filled, you can reach out and let him know why you didn't help him. I would even go so far as to tell you about your experience with this guy, to show that he's not responsible and not willing to help when needed. I can tell you my story. A horrible boss who treated me like garbage always wanted to know how many of the 40 hours a week I worked, because only 40 hours was just not enough. No overtime was paid though, because there was no budget for it. A few years later, he asked my friend for a job, and I told my friend the truth about him. He ended up not getting the job. Later, we happened to meet at a bar, and he told me about his job problem, and I pretended to be very concerned about it. Ha ha ha, evil laugh. The next story is, landscaping owner rips my friend off of $400, so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. A while back, my friend was selling some stuff online, and among the items was a water heater. You know, the ones you see in every community hall or church kitchen? It was in working condition. He threw it up online for $150 and got an email from a person who runs a landscaping business saying he'll give him $100 cash today. Done. 2 weeks later, he got an email saying that it's not working. Weird. So my friend offered to give a full refund or cover repair costs if it's under $100. The guy instead sent an invoice for $400, saying the repair's been done, and if my friend doesn't pay it in 48 hours, he'll send a debt collector after him. He paid it out of fear and emailed him the confirmation. The landscaping owner then emailed back saying, "This is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics," followed by a "have a great day. Don't let this hold you back," with a smiley face at the end of the email. A month later, my friend was in a bar, and he overhears a girl talking about how her boss, who runs a landscaping firm, screwed over some dumbass selling a water heater. My friend said, "Oh D, I gotta hear this. Do you mind if I join your table?" And the girl said sure and told the story. Her boss had brought a busted water heater from a secondhand store for $25 and a working one for $100 and billed the seller for the repair for the busted one before he sold it on for $300 to some community group. My friend asked, "Who did this so I don't hire that guy to fix up my yard?" Ha ha ha's all around. She says the company name, and lo and behold, it's on the email of the guy my friend sold the water heater to. He was the dummy in the story. He told me he was pretty angry about it, but COVID then hit, so he had other stuff to worry about. 18 months later, he was browsing the website he originally sold the water heater on, and he saw a bunch of landscaping materials. Shovels, gardening stuff, wheelbarrows, lights for working at night, drills, nail guns, some construction materials, and a generator. Now in my friend's location, apparently, if you're selling a generator, then you need to have a warrant of fitness for it, proving that it works, it's safe, no flayed wires, etc., etc. Most people ignore it, and he saw that this generator is being sold by the landscaping firm. This generator, he said, just by looking at it, there was no way in hell would it have a WOF. Word of note. Failure for a business to provide a WOF upon request for a generator after 2 weeks. when reported to the official departments and enforced by the court. The punishment is a hefty fine, and the courts often force the seller to refund the affected party and pay any costs that they incurred. He talked to his flatmate, who agreed that they would go 50-50 on the generator, but he would transfer the money. Now, my friend had never met the landscaping firm owner face-to-face when selling the water heater. He left it outside and pickup was confirmed via his security camera. And when he got there, it was clear that the owner, this old grumpy-looking man who enjoyed yelling at his employees, had emptied out his storage unit. The owner was very much as it is no refund, and the flatmate showed him the transfer confirmation, and they take the generator for $800. No warrant of fitness is provided. They then took it to a friend of theirs who is an electrician, and he agreed to check it and give an invoice for repairs, and to quote the friend, "It would be cheaper to buy a new generator, and to be honest, this generator shouldn't have been sold. It should have been scrapped." They also found that the main identifier number had been scratched off, but not a second number that's often recorded as well on WOFs for tracking purposes. So they got in contact with the seller, telling him the cost for repair, around $5,000. He promptly tells them that he's not paying, as it is no refund, to which they then asked, "Have you got the warrant of fitnesses for this generator?" Silence for 2 days. They followed up with another email asking for it. No response. They then ask again and get an email from him saying that he'll take it back for $800. They said no. "We want the WOF," and they get no response. They emailed him every day for 2 weeks. Nothing. So they printed out the original item listing that had been screenshotted and had been archived on the website and reported him to the website and then the government. 4 months later, my friend is in court and the guy went up to him. He tells him that he'll take back the generator for $800 and that my friend and his flatmate will be going to tell the judge that the seller has refunded them and they want it all dropped, and that's what's happening here, full stop, end of story. They're doing what they're told to do. My friend said no. So they went into the court and it's over very quickly. The inspector the government sent out to inspect the generator stated that it was in poor condition, shouldn't have been sold, was highly unsafe, and that the seller had tried to get the generator a WOF in early 2021, but instead had been told that it was to be repaired or scrapped, and that it was not to be sold. They identified it by a second number on the generator that they took down in the original attempt to get it WOF'd, which had not been scratched out like the first. The judge ordered the landscaping firm owner to refund the flatmate the $800, pay the $5,000 for repair to the generator, and was ordered to pay a $10,000 fine, which would be given directly to my friend's flatmate as the affected party. When they left the courtroom, the owner was furious and told them that under no uncertain terms was he paying them a penny more, and that he couldn't understand what he had done to deserve such treatment. To which my friend said, "Remember the water heater?" He gave him a very confused look. "Remember the water heater you brought for $100? Well, I do, because I sold it to you. And I know that you had a different one repaired and invoiced me for it." His jaw was on the floor. And to hit it home, he said, "It's a B, isn't it, when what goes around comes around, especially when it accumulated interest. You have 48 hours to pay, or a debt collector will be contacted. Remember, this is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics. Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back." And they left. He paid the $15,000 2 days later. My friend and the flatmate split the $10,000 50-50, as they agreed. Combination of rent payments and study stuff. The generator they got repaired, and then got a WOF for it before selling it for $1,000, with a newly replaced identifier number. They then went out for a wonderful dinner and night out in town. In short, old landscaping owner rips my friend off $400, so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. It's a good one. It's so inspiring to read a revenge story like this. I wonder if he would think twice before doing something like that again. However, some people like this are set up differently. They're just terrible people. It's like they enjoy it. So I think this guy deserved this karma. And now he owes you money. Haha. I work in generator sales and service. Selling a backup generator is not like selling most electronics, because they're used almost exclusively for emergencies. Hospitals that can't keep a detailed generator with maintenance records can everywhere face thousands of fines from both state medical boards and state fire marshals. I recently became financially secure, and I'm really bored at home right now, so I'm currently planning on getting revenge on people who have wronged me. Hopefully in a couple of years I'll have some good stories to tell in this subsection. The last story is, want to call me a brown noser? Then yeah, we'll see how that works for you. This happened many moons ago, roughly in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and it's one of my absolute favorite petty stories of all time. It involves my grandmother. My grandmother was a no BS kind of woman. She was not afraid to say no, and she was not afraid to tell it like it is. Towards the end of her life, she would always tell me, "I know a lot of people thought I was a B, but there were times I really didn't care." Anyways, this happened at her last job before she retired. She had a few friends at work, but she wasn't friendly with everyone per se, just on a professional level. There was this one girl, Debbie, who was a known backstabber and somewhat unpleasant to work with. She was that person who would be friendly to you and then talk mad SH about you behind your back. She had no problem taking credit for your work and blaming you for her mistakes. It was safe to say no one liked Debbie, but they tolerated her up to a point. So one day my grandmother was having a short, friendly conversation with her manager, who was from the Midwest, which is where my grandmother was from. Typical water cooler conversation, right? Well, out of the corner of my grandmother's eye, she saw Debbie stealing looks at her, while Debbie was talking to a colleague of my grandmother, who was also somewhat my grandmother's best friend. Later, my grandmother happened to stop at her friend's workstation for a work-related inquiry. Happened to ask what her and Debbie was talking about. Her friend said she didn't want to get involved, which told my grandmother right off that Debbie was talking about her specifically. She was right. Turns out Debbie was telling everyone that my grandmother was being a brown-nose to the boss because they were from the Midwest. But she wasn't. Far from it. So my grandmother pretty much said to her friend, "Okay, thanks for telling me." I think it was a day or so later when it was lunchtime, and Debbie came around and asked if she could sit next to my grandmother at the lunch table. My grandmother turned around, looked at Debbie in the eyes and said, "Nope, don't want you here. You can sit any place else but here." Debbie was peeved, so she did sit someplace else but went to the manager, the very manager she was talking about, and demanded my grandmother be a team player. This is where it got really interesting. So the manager comes over with Debbie in tow and asked what was going on. Point blank, my grandmother looks at her boss in the eye and goes, "You know, she's telling everyone that I'm sucking up to you, that I'm being a brown-noser. Not only that, but you know well that she does nothing but cause problems with everyone in this office. She backstabs everyone left and right, and she cries that no one is friends with her, and she's right. No one wants to be friends with her. She only wants to sit here so she can find out something to use against me or everyone at this table, and as far as I am concerned, she doesn't need to sit here. She can sit by herself or in the car, but I don't care. She's not sitting next to me." I remember my grandmother telling me she remembers Debbie's face slack from shock, and her boss's face was trying hard not to smile. Her boss then tried to be reconciliatory and said that they worked together. My grandmother then told her, and Debbie, "You're right, we work together and that's how it's going to be. She can come to me for any work-related questions, but if she comes to be friends, not gonna happen." For the rest of her time at the place, Debbie never once talked about my grandmother again, nor did she ever talk to her. A lot of people took my grandmother's cue and basically shunned Debbie and would only talk to her on work-related stuff. She ultimately quit the place before my grandmother retired. My grandmother was kind of a workplace hero for that. Your grandmother was right to tell her boss. People like Debbie are detrimental to the workforce, and therefore to the company. They create a hostile environment from which everyone in the company or office suffers. She deserved to be shunned and avoided. If she hadn't gossiped about everyone and was a good person, no one would have turned away from her. Your grandmother is a hero. Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a nice day.